So I guess we'll
Is
get
that,
started. My name
yeah,
is Leo, and I'm president of Tech Pals and co-founder. And this is Joshua. He's another co-founder.
yeah. I go by the title of senior tech. Leah is our president, and then we also have some volunteers along with us today that are going to be helping out. So I have my good friend Sarah, joining us along. She'll be lecturing on Apple Podcasts.
Hi
You want to
guys.
introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing Apple Podcasts today, so I'm just gonna teach you guys how to use that.
Awesome. And then we also have our good friend Joel with us today, and he'll be handling our Stitcher podcast. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey all, Joel, and like you said, I'll show the Stitcher platform for podcasts. I see a couple familiar faces on here from some other activities. So it's hey there, Daryl. So it's good to see some repeat faces. So looking forward to interacting with you guys and have a little fun today.
All right, great. All right, so let's jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen here in 2 seconds. Give me 1 second to bring it up.
Yeah, so we have a bit of a PowerPoint presentation for you guys today. This PowerPoint presentation will be sent out to all of you guys because it'll have some links in it. Plus, if you want to go back and look at it or show it to other people, we'll also be sending out some guides type as well. So there's going to be a good amount of information going out to all of you today.
All right, can everyone see the screen? Great.
Perfect.
We've even got some captions that we figured out how to put on the bottom of the screen, if that helps anyone. All right, so this is Tech Pals Presents Podcast, learning what they are and how to access them.
All right. So what is a podcast? I'm not sure if many of you know what a podcast is, but the basic definition of a podcast is a program as of music or talk made available in digital format for automatic download over the internet.
So why do people listen to podcasts? Well, by the end of the podcast, you generally achieve one of the following. Either it has some entertainment value for you, you gain valuable insights, you gain some education about something, or you simply got a good laugh. So there's various types of podcasts. There's about 7 different types, from one-on-one interviews, repurposed materials, hybrid mixtures of different types. And we've provided a link there so you can learn more about the different types of podcasts. And then there's also another link here for top 7 favorite podcasts for baby boomers, seniors, and older generations that you guys might find interesting. Josh?
Yeah, all right. So sorry, there's a bit of a lag whenever you go to the next slide. So just hold on a second, Leah. So how to access built-in podcast apps. So a lot of people do not know this, but there is essentially only 2 kinds of phones. There are all Apple devices, which are iPhones, and then there's everything that's not an iPhone, which are running what's called the Android operating system. Now, in each of these devices, there is an app that's already built in that we can use in order to access podcasts. For everything that's not on a smartphone, for all of your Android devices, we have Google Play Music, which has a built-in podcast section. And then for podcasts, which is built in directly into the iPhone.
So Tech Pals has these things called Tech Pals Top Picks. It's a piece of technology that we utilize often, and we recommend that others embrace as well to enrich their life. A little bit more about that after we do Apple Podcasts. So in addition to the built-in podcast apps, there's also YouTube, which can be used to play podcasts as well. And you can use YouTube across your PC, your Mac, your iPhone, or your Android Apple computer. There's some other places to access your as well, besides for YouTube and the other mentioned ones. And that one is Spotify. You want to talk a little bit about Spotify?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Dan, would you do me a favor? Dan Moore, would you mute your microphone for me, please?
Oh, here, I can do it.
All right. So Spotify is pretty amazing. I've been using Spotify for years. I use it as a premium service, but that's only because I've been a Lyft and an Uber driver for a few years, and I want to have good entertainment for my. Beyond that, Spotify is mainly really good for music, but you can find podcasts on there as well. However, I still personally prefer Stitcher whenever it comes to a podcast specific app.
Spreading. I don't know if you guys are familiar with TED Talks or not, but this started back in the 80s as a conference that talked about TED, technology, education, and design. And today it covers almost all topics from science, to business, to global issues, and they're translated in 110 different languages. And it's just some really interesting podcasts to listen to. All right, so now we're going to jump into the Google Play Music. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And we're going to have Josh.
Yes, so I will be jumping directly into starting the presentation for Google Play screen for my phone. All righty. So there's my screen. I'm going to swipe over. Now what I'm going to do to show you what the icon looks like, you may have to go into your Google folder. There's a few ways. If you can't find it that easily, you can swipe up from the bottom so you can open up your main search bar area, and then you can hit the search bar at the very top of your screen. Play music, and you'll see it's on the very top left here. But I'm going to go back to my home screen, and I'm going to hover over my icon and lift it up to show you guys what it looks like. And that's, I'll go ahead and tap on that to open it. All right. And so here is Google Play Music. If you'll notice, it's not at a podcast section at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my annotation here, and I'm going to show you the hamburger menu. This box right up here that I'm circling in the top left is going to allow me to access the podcast section. Podcasts are located about 5 down right here. We'll open that up. And from here, we have the top charts and your podcasts right up here at the top. The top chart. Your podcasts will have everything that you've added and subscribed to in Google Podcasts. If you want to find some specific podcast, you can use the search icon at the top right. Oops. If you use the search icon, you can then type in some specific podcast that you're thinking about. TED Talks, for example. At the very top, you see radio stations. If you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see videos. Then you'll see podcasts there. I have the ability to expand it out to 16 more podcasts and see everything that's in that category of podcasts for what I searched. And you'll see here, I found the top TED Talks. I can click on that one. And then I have now opened up a full menu for this TED Talk. What this is going to do if I press play is just play the most recent one that has been released. If I press the subscribe button, I can then add this to my list of your podcasts. I have the ability to let it notify me about new episodes, so it sends notifications to my phone, or I can automatically download the latest 3 ones. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to this because I love TED Talks. I also have the ability to share. If I want somebody else to know about a specific TED Talk, I can hit my share button and share it with somebody via the various medias. All right. And then down here, we also have the list of podcast episodes that are available inside of the TED Talk, top TED Talks channel. So essentially, it's a channel, and then these are episodes. And you can go through and find one. If you want to learn more about a specific episode before you read it, you can pick one, pick the I. There's the little circle I. I'll circle that for you so you can see what I'm talking about. There's a little bit of a delay here, but there we go. So if I go to that I, it allows me to get a full read of this entire episode. From here, I can also hit this little download button right here, or I can directly play the episode from here as well. One last thing I wanted to show everybody before, because this is really about it. There's not a whole lot of meat to Google Play Podcasts. It's pretty straightforward. So I wanted to show you guys the casting feature. So what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll show you guys this at the very top of my screen. I have this TV looking button that's got the Wi-Fi signal in the corner. If I click on that, oops, stop sharing, stop notating. If I click on that, and then I go to kitchen speaker, which is right here next to me. It's a smart speaker I already have hooked up. I can then play podcasts directly from in my kitchen from my phone, which is a pretty fun feature. But that's really about it. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and open it up to some questions if people have any questions about Google Podcasts.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so that's Google Play Music, and we had a couple people talking in the chat about a Google Podcast app that's going to be coming in place of the Google Play Music. But for now, the built-in one is the Google Play Music, and you can access that for free.
Thank you, Leah. So our next presenter is going to be Sarah. Sarah will be connecting her device and walking through Apple Podcasts for us.
Give me 1 second. Okay, so what we're gonna start off. Is it showing anything right now or no?
You're showing your broadcast screen. You should be able to just go to your home screen now.
I was on my home screen, but it wasn't showing it. Let's see. Let me try this again.
It started showing something. Then you have to start the broadcast for that.
Okay. Let's see if it works now.
It's showing us a blank white screen that says screen broadcast.
Mm,
Gotta share the Zoom.
we're having some technical difficulty.
We can walk through the document if we need to.
No worries. Yeah, let's pull up the document for right now.
And
we
just
send
it?
now.
Let's see.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome, cool. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. I'm kind of zoomed out quite a ways. All right, so the step one, whenever you're doing Apple Podcasts, is going to find the purple podcast button. Similar to how I searched for it, you can do the same thing on a iPhone by swiping on the screen all the way to the left. It has a search bar on the top as well. The podcast button is purple, looks just like that. This guide will be able to go out to everyone as well. The first time you sign in, you'll just want to tap continue to open it up and get started. Then you'll want to, when you first open it, you'll see a bar at the bottom. You'll see browse, library, listen now, all this at the bottom. You'll want to tap browse in there. And what that's going to do is then bring you to the browse screen. If you swipe left and right, you can browse within a certain category. And then if you tap on a specific podcast, for example, Life at Home, then you'll open up that channel. And then now you'll have all of the different sub-channels within that category. So now everything that was in Life at Home, you now have the in the kitchen section, the in the garden section. You can swipe left or right to browse the different podcasts within this channel, or you can just tap on one to check it out and learn more about it. What this will now do is open up a specific podcast that you can then go and look at each specific individual episode within that podcast. You can scroll up to view the different episodes within that podcast. Then, if you keep scrolling all the way to the very bottom of the episode list, you'll get to the reviews. And they look just like, and this is an iPhone in night mode, by the way. Sometimes they're in day mode, so they look a little different than this, but it's all essentially the same. So that's what the ratings and reviews look like right there. And if you keep scrolling down beyond the reviews, you'll find more stuff that's similar to that, and you might also like. At this point, you can hit the browse button because you've fully explored that all the way, and you can go back to browse, and then we can check out the now playing category. We'll scroll down and you can see all of the different stories we have. Never Miss a News Story, Call Your Mom. These are all really cool ones that are at the top of the Apple charts. You'll see them the first time you open your Apple Podcast app as well. And then if you go to the very bottom of the browse section, you'll find top episodes. Number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way. You can click on news, all these different categories here, comedy, sports, history, and find podcasts specific to that category. So for example, we can tap news here, and up will pop up You can start up a daily news habit. You can find your favorite news publications and add them to your podcast so you can more easily access them. Or even, for example, with the smart speaker, you can then have your smart speaker read off the daily news from your favorite journals through your podcast app. If you want to you really like, you can subscribe to it. And this is very similar to the subscribe feature I was talking about on Google Play Music. You're not paying for anything. You haven't put any credit card information in. If there ever, sometimes there are paid subscriptions, and it'll warn you. It'll say, hey, this is going to cost you X amount of money. So you'll know whether or not, but you can just subscribe and it'll add it to your channel so you can more easily access these podcasts later on. On the listen now, which is on the far left there, you'll then find all of the stuff that you have saved to your the stuff that you're already playing. Everything that you've already been playing, you can pick up where you last left off very easily that way, and everything that's related to that. Then you have your library. Your library is where all of your stuff that you've saved goes. Everything that you've hit the subscribe button on, all of your favorites and stuff that you've downloaded will all go right here into your library. We can also tap on shows inside of the library, and that's where we will find the stuff that we have downloaded, and that's in. If we want to download something to our device, you'll see this cloud symbol right here. And that will download it to your device so you can listen to it for offline viewing. The downloaded episodes appear at the very bottom of the show list inside of your library. Now, new in Apple Podcasts, you can search the audio, which is a beta. This is kind of a fun feature, which is really fun to play around with. I haven't messed with it too much. Essentially, from what I understand, it will listen to a podcast that you have already listened to. And let's say they had guest speakers and people on inside of their podcast that you want to learn more about. So you want to listen to the podcast of somebody that was being interviewed on a podcast you listened to. It would search the audio of that podcast and find podcasts related to that. So that's a fun one. Or you could just type in the name of the specific podcast if you can think of what the specific name is. For example, you could type in Star Trek Picard into the search bar. And then you would have a list populate here of stuff to click on. You could just click that top one and it would take you straight to the Star Trek Picard podcast. If you select on a tile in shows list, it'll take you to the main page for it, and that's the subscription button where you can decide if you want to subscribe to it. And that's where you can also continue scrolling down to find more episodes from that channel, from that podcast channel. If you swipe vertical and go down all the way here to play Absolute Candor, you can get an idea, and where this is just like a brief presentation example. You can tap the plus next to it, and that's kind of like subscribing to it. It'll add it to your library, so you can just then easily go into your library and find it later on. You can now tap now playing by whenever you tap on the episode, after you press the plus and then you tap on the episode, it'll go into now playing mode. And this is what that looks like. You can turn on your sleep timer, just take notes on certain episodes you've watched, all sorts of fun stuff from there. Then here's the last, these are all the main controls that I have broken down. Once you're listening to something and you've pulled up the bottom menu to listen to it, where you have your pause and your play and your forwards and backwards, listen to your playback speed. Like one thing that I like to do sometimes is listening to it a little faster or sometimes slower, depending on the speed of the speaker. similar to how I showed you guys how I casted the to my speaker in the kitchen so I could hear the podcast there. Arrow in your iPhone device in the Apple Podcasts. Then these three dots over here is where you will be able to add the specific episode you're currently listening to a library, to be able to go and find a different show. If you want to copy the link to this specific episode, or if you need to report a concern. And if you want to close out of that window we just had open, which is pulling up, you can swipe down on the screen and it'll close that window. And you can also see the ratings and reviews for the specific podcast episodes by going all the way to the very bottom. And then you'll also run into the like category at the very underneath the ratings and reviews. And that's essentially it for Apple Podcasts. Sorry it wasn't as cool as an interactive one.
All right, great. Well, that's Apple Podcast for us. And then lastly, we have our Tech Pals top pick for Stitcher, and we're going to have Joel present that to us. Well, wait, does anyone have any questions about the Apple Podcast? These documents again at the end of this lecture for everyone to, go through step by step and look at. All right, we're going to jump into Joel's presentation.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So there's a little shot of my dog. So, he's my Tech Pals mascot, my office mate there. But that's my home screen. So I'm gonna jump into Stitcher. Before I do, I think it might be just worth mentioning that why are there all these different ways to get to podcasts, and is there really a difference between them? And for the most part, the answer to that is no. 95% or more of the content and of the actual podcasts themselves appear on any of the platforms we have been discussing today. So it's kind of a matter of choosing the one that is most convenient for you, that you like the interface. And I think that's a big reason we all prefer Stitcher. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like picking between Comcast or DirecTV for TV service. The programs are the same. You just pick the one that you prefer. Now, most of these are free as opposed to those, but I think it's worth making that note that you're not going to get a different podcast necessarily from one of the platforms versus another. So that said, Stitcher, you can all see in the on the right hand side, and now loading around. This is what the Stitcher application icon looks like. Okay, so I have it parked there. I'm going to go ahead and tap it to launch. A lot of this is going to be pretty similar to what you guys have seen so far. So I might move through this, not quickly, but I'm gonna try not to be overly repetitive at the same time. Now, Stitcher, because it is free, means there can be some advertising on the platform, just like any other free media content provider, be it TV or radio. If it's free, you're going to get exposed to some ads. So at the top here of this home page that we are on right now, that is the same page you're on every time you launch Stitcher, there is suggested content. And as I'm scrolling through it, this is all the creators of this content are advertising by having these suggestions up there. Okay, so that may be different every time you log in. The next set of content that you can see me scrolling here is my listening history. I like this interface because no matter what I have been listening to, it is all very easy for me to see in my history as I scroll through these different episodes. And of course, the application picks up exactly where I left off the last time I was listening. Maybe I got distracted. Maybe I was driving somewhere while I was listening. Maybe I went to sleep. Whatever that reason may be, I was able to pause, switch to a different podcast next time I was listening, and it saves all those places so I don't have to try and remember where or start over every time. Podcasts can be like channels. Sometimes I'm in the mood for something funny. Sometimes I'm in the mood for something informational. Who knows? But I can bounce around in any way I feel fit. Okay. Below that, you can see my player interface at the bottom. Okay. So, or near the bottom, I should say. So in a moment, I'm going to launch that and show you guys the actual controls, which are super simple on Stitcher, which is another reason I like it. But before I do that, at the very bottom of the screen are your 4 primary home screen menu icons. You can see the home icon on the bottom left is highlighted in blue because we are on the home screen, okay? So as I navigate to these other primary buttons, they'll begin to highlight to tell me which screen I'm on. So I'm gonna do that. I'm going to go to the next icon over, okay, which is my podcasts. So this is a list of the categories of podcasts that I have created over time to download my various favorite podcasts and put them into spots just so it's a little bit easier to navigate. And you can see those categories on the screen here. So favorites that I go to all the time up there at the top. That's kind of a potpourri of stuff that I dump in there. And you can see the other categories: news, personal, science, and so forth, okay? So I'm not necessarily gonna jump into any of those, but anytime I search for a podcast, which I'll do here in a second, I'm able to designate where I want that to go, so it's easy for me to find, so that over time, as I have downloaded probably 100 or more podcasts, I don't have to scroll through all of them to quickly get to what I want to listen to, okay?
Hey, real quick, Joel, before you leave the screen, would you mind showing us how to create a new list?
Sure. Let's see here. Usually I actually do that from a different spot.
I believe those 3 dots on the top right allow you to create a new list.
So 3 dots at the top, as Josh just indicated. Hopefully you guys can see it on my screen. It's a little blocked on my share due to some of the Zoom controls, but at the very top there were 3 dots, and when I pressed it, there was an option to add a new list, and by selecting that, it brings up pretty straightforward my keyboard, where I can just create a list name, and for here I'll just say fun stuff. And I'll save that. And now, as I scroll down, oh, I don't know why I didn't say fun. Maybe I didn't type that wrong, but it just says stuff. In any event, that would be a new category I could use. That's one way to do it. Thanks, Josh. Okay, the next icon over is for premium listening. So like any application, just about, but especially those that deliver content like Spotify or Stitcher or others, there is a paid version as well. And by having a paid version, you get a few more features, nothing that I personally think is worth it. However, it does mean that you don't have to get exposed to the ads bombarding you all the time, which some people prefer. So if you want to pay, then you can go ahead and select that and get rid of a lot of the advertising, and it cleans up your screen. That's up to you. I don't bother, and I've never needed to. Final icon is the search icon in the bottom right, okay? Just like you saw in the functionality from some of the other presentations, you have a search field at the top. If you know the name of a specific show that somebody has suggested to you, or you found on the web, or that the Tech Pals are posting the list of some of the popular ones, if you know the specific name, you can search. However, it's not uncommon to be able to just decide, hey, you know what? I want some new content What's going on out there that I don't know about. So for this example, I'm going to use that, where I'm going to click on popular and trending. Gives me those two options. Let's see what's going on in the popular shows universe. Well, here's a list of some of the most popular podcasts available right now, okay? All sorts of different categories. So let's say I want to pick that top one, the Joe Rogan Experience, okay? Well, I'm going to go ahead and hit that plus icon, similar to what Josh showed you earlier, and you're going to see it's going to bring up my list of all the different categories that I had created from my favorites, for my favorites earlier. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to pick, I want this to show up in my favorites. I could pick others as well, but for now, I'll just say favorites, okay? So now that I've selected that, it's going to show up there. As I mentioned a minute ago, though, if this show was under a category that I didn't currently have, you'll see at the bottom, I have the ability to add a new category or playlist that I could add this to. But since you saw me just do that, I'm not going to do it again. It's the exact same process, okay? So I've now added the Joe Rogan Experience to that category, okay? Now, you will still see, now that we've gone through those 4 primary categories from the home screen at the bottom, you'll still see I have my player controls are always populated at the bottom, near the bottom of the screen, directly above those 4 icons. I'm going to go ahead and select that to open it up, and it's going to bring me to the screen of the last podcast. Sorry, I've got a little lag going on. It's going to bring me, when it launches, to the last podcast that I had played. I'm going to let it catch up. There we go. Okay. So now I'm on the home screen of this particular podcast. So NPR's Hidden Brain, which I'm a big fan. And from here, it's pretty straightforward controls. You can see that in the middle, there's the play bar. This is a 6-minute episode. I'm 36 minutes in, and if I want to jump around in any other spot, I simply press my finger where I want to go to fast forward or rewind instantly to that spot, okay? In the middle, you can see the pause and play icon. I'm tapping that to toggle between the two, pretty straightforward. And on either side, you can see the 30-second jump forward. Maybe there's a commercial, I don't want to hear it. I can jump forward 30 seconds, do that as many times as I need to get to where my podcast content begins again. Or if I've missed something, I can jump backwards 15 seconds as many times as I need to by hitting either of those buttons. You can also see on the far right, next to the 30-second icon, there is a next episode icon that'll jump all the way to the end of this and go to the very next episode for Hidden Brain that is queued up, okay? Lastly, by hitting the icon on the left by the 15-second rewind button, it brings up these controls down at the button, similar to what you saw down at the bottom, I mean. Similar to what you saw earlier, there is a sleep timer, and there is an ability to control the speed of the playback. I almost always go faster than normal. That's my personal preference, but you can set that to whatever you prefer for your environment. Okay. I'm going to back out of the Hidden Brain, and I'm going to pop into my episode playlist, just so that you can see when you have a list of different episodes in different categories, this is what it looks like. Really, the only thing I want to point out for you here is that on the right side, you can see all those episode play buttons. The blue ones indicate that that episode, I can play it, but it's going to need to download. And that's going to take anywhere from a matter of seconds to several of minutes based on the length of the episode and the speed of my connection. A green playback icon indicates I have already downloaded this episode, and by selecting play, I'm quickly going to be able to hit play on that, and it should start up very quickly. Those are all the primary controls for Stitcher. It's not very complicated, pretty straightforward, and Stitcher is known for having a huge library of episodes to choose from easily, which is some of the prime reasons it is a TechPal's top pick. Does anybody have any questions, Leah, Josh, or the user group for me?
Hey, Joel. Sorry. I just wanted to say one other thing. When you're downloading podcasts, you want to make sure that you're on a Wi-Fi, as it could take up a lot of your what's it called? I'm sorry.
Data.
Data. Thank you.
Yeah, you pay. Most of your wireless plans require or have a data usage fee associated with them, or a cap. So thanks for bringing that up, Leah. If you're on a Wi-Fi at home or somewhere else, you don't get charged data, and if you're not, you do. Many of these platforms, including Stitcher, have a setting that will only allow you to download or download episodes automatically if you're on Wi-Fi, so that you don't accidentally use your data while you're not connected to Wi-Fi.
Thanks, Joel.
You bet.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Joel.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm confused on the download part. I mean, Joel said earlier that you could download it if you wanted to. Can I listen to podcasts just without downloading them? When would I have to download one? I understand if I lost my Wi-Fi maybe, but can you clarify the reasons?
So I can answer that, I think, and of course anybody else can chime in. But on your mobile device, you will need to download a podcast to listen to it. However, once downloaded, and either whether you listen to it or not, you have the option of deleting it, meaning it's no longer downloaded, so that it doesn't take up all that space on your phone. Or there is also a setting on the different podcast platforms where the podcasts will automatically delete as new podcasts come in. But you do need to download for a mobile device. Some platforms, if you're listening through your computer, you can stream right off of a website, but that's slightly different than going through your phone. Your phone you'll have to download. That does not mean it's permanent, and if you need to free up space, you can simply go in, and let me try, and since I'm still, so I just went into this particular episode of this podcast, and you can see at the bottom, I have some options where I can do different things, and one of those options is delete downloaded episode. So
I actually believe that there's something going on in your settings. So if you'd actually stop sharing, I'll share my Stitcher. I have
okay.
Play without
Great.
downloading.
Okay.
So here's my Stitcher. And so mine looks a little different. I've got these, mine doesn't have the like blank circle in the background. I can just press play and it directly starts playing it. So I believe there's something going on in your settings with your download permissions that's saying, oh, we want to download it like directly, maybe off your data or something. But there, you can actually listen to them without downloading them.
There you go. So that's a better answer. And you're right. I probably set it up to download so that I can access my podcasts anytime, even if I don't have an internet connection. I used to travel a lot for work. And so being on airplanes and whatnot was pretty regular for me. So it made a lot of sense. So thanks, Josh.
Joss, this is Sarah. I have another question. When you were showing the Picard Star Trek episodes, to me, that's a TV show. So what are you listening to? Is it a review of it? Is it just the script? And also, I thought you had to pay for Picard on CBS All Access. So two questions there.
Do we lose Josh?
Josh.
Yeah, it would probably help if I had some audio, huh? So yeah, essentially there are two separate things. The TV show that you have to pay for with All Access is separate than the podcast. The podcast essentially has people talking shop about the show, interviewing guest stars, things like that.
It's for fans.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, that kind of raises another interesting point about podcasts in general. Anybody can make a podcast. Anybody. And it's very, very easy for the average person to create a podcast and publish it to the public. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Similar, if you're familiar at all, to what YouTube allowed the average user to do with video. So now anybody, which on the one hand is good because a lot of people who didn't have access to share very interesting content now do, and it can come from anywhere and anyone without the purchase of special equipment. You can do it just with a laptop or a mobile device. But on the flip side, it also means that there's tons and tons of content out there that might not be the most polished professional content in the world as well. So pros and cons to that overall concept.
And we definitely welcome everybody that is interested in maybe starting their own podcast. I have several friends who run their own podcasts. Like my friend Diaper runs 3 podcasts at the moment, and there we could put a guide together similar to this on how to start your own podcast. If you go into it with this thought of like, oh, I have this idea, I can make money with it, it's probably not a good idea for a podcast. But if you're like, I really like my ideas and I want other people to know about my ideas, then I think that's a great idea to make a podcast.
Thanks, Josh. Well, we have some more time left. If anyone has any more questions, we're open to answer those. At the end of this, we're also going to send out a survey, Google Forms, asking, what you learned, whether you like this, whether you recommend us to a friend. We really value your feedback.
That's in the chat right now. If any of you could copy and paste that most recent URL that I have in the chat, that's going to have our master document. That's going to have all of the documents that we went through that were similar to the iPhone, as well as the feedback form.
Thanks, Josh. And we're also going to email these out to Daryl, who's going to pass these around as well.
Hey, Josh or Leah, does the feedback form have a spot for suggestions on other topics and content that the group might be interested in?
It has comments and suggestions. So yeah,
Great.
specifically edit it. I mean, if you guys want to add what's your next topics you'd like us to present on there, that would be amazing.
Awesome. Anyone else have any other questions for us? Did you guys feel like you learned anything about podcasts?
Everyone's muted.
From Daryl. That's always a good sign.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Great.
Well, I'd also like to thank all of our TechPal volunteers. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much for helping out.
Yes, thank you, Joel. Thank you, Sarah. Sorry we couldn't get it working, but I'm so happy you still made it.
No problem.
And thank you everyone else that showed up.
And we're going to be posting this video, this recording to our website. So that way, if you know anyone that is interested in learning more about podcasts, you can direct them directly to our website.
Yeah, and their website is linked from our website. So
Nice.
Awesome.
We are all sharing information.
Perfect.
All right.
Cool. All right. Well, without any further ado, I guess we'll call that a meeting about 9 minutes ahead of schedule. But thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was really interesting.
Thanks.
Ah.